Hello, everybody. Welcome to the second part of our work on European institutions and platform for youth policy that are active at a European level for us to influence decision making. This is part of your lessons about advocacy within the Leadership Academy. And so, as you remember, we talked before about the important institutions we advocate to, the European Union on one side and the Council of Europe on the other. And you might ask yourself, do we do this as YMCA Europe on our own? The answer is no, because one of the main mottos well recognized in Europe is L'union fait la force, we say in French, which means strength lies in unity. So generally, as youth organizations, we don't work on our own. We work with other youth organizations, and we have the fortune to be able to do so through a very, very important platform that does not exist in other continents, and it's called the European Youth Forum. YFJ is the short for it because it uses also the nomenclature in French. What is the European Youth Forum? It's a platform where all youth organizations in Europe and all national youth councils, so every youth organization in Europe, are represented at a European level. It is the biggest youth platform in Europe. It is formed by national youth councils and international youth NGOs. And its main job is to dialogue with European institutions, being the European Union or the Council of Europe, and to speak with one voice for youth. This is a democratic body, so we participate to it, and as YMCA Europe, and as you can see, you're also represented in it by your national youth council. So if you're YMCA Spain, for example, you will be a member of your national youth council, and you're also a member of YMCA Europe, which is a member of the European Youth Forum. This means you're represented twice. As we said, it's managed democratically, so there is a board of volunteers, and like our executive committee, and a secretariat, a staff. Its main job, as we said, is youth advocacy. To do so, they approve a basis of policy papers, so everyone can see what are the main points of advocacy of the European Youth Forum. There's a transparency to it, and these policy papers and recommendations and manifestos and motions get approved during 2 statutory meetings per year, the Council of Members, COMEM, or the General Assembly. Of course, as YMCA Europe, we send our delegates to this, and we participate to the work through our youth policy group, which we will talk about later. So where do we come in? So we make a little bit of an image where we can understand where does it work. So you can see there, you may be members of a local YMCA, right? Your local YMCA is also a member of a national YMCA. Your local YMCA may be a member of a local youth council, and definitely your national YMCA will be a member of a national youth council. Now, both your local youth council and your national youth council will be represented in the European Youth Forum, and your YMCA will be represented by YMCA Europe. So you have a double representation through your National Youth Council and through your YMCA. And then the European Youth Forum dialogues with the EU and with the Council of Europe. What does that dialogue mean? It means that these institutions might not have an open door policy for us as YMCA, but they definitely have to have one with the European Youth Forum. The role of the European Youth Forum is pretty clear in the laws and regulations of the EU, and the EU has to consult it anytime they create something, for example, as the EU Youth Strategy, EU Youth Goals, everything related to youth policy. The Council of Europe, what is the interaction? We talked about the Advisory Council on Youth, that is a very important body who works through a system of co-management within the Council of Europe. Half of that youth organization side of the Advisory Council on Youth is elected through the European Youth Forum. So we can be elected to the Advisory Council of Youth as YMCA Europe if we send a candidate that then has to be voted by the whole members, the whole membership of the European Youth Forum. So how is advocacy in youth policy done? We mentioned that the input has to be through the policy documents of the European Youth Forum. So the European Youth Forum, how do they make policy papers? They have expert groups on youth funding, on social affairs, on volunteering, education, human rights, etc. And they create drafts of policy papers. Then these policy papers get presented at COMEM, or youth organizations like YMCA Europe receive a direct request for consultation, and then they have to give their opinion on these drafts. Then there is a direct dialogue with European institutions. What does that mean? Sometimes, for example, what happened for the EU Youth Strategy, the European Commission will ask the European Youth Forum to see a group of youth representatives from its membership that they will consult directly on the EU youth strategy. In our case, a member of a youth policy group was present in this youth representatives group and was able to push our priorities for the EU youth goals. One notable result, and you will see it later, is that mental health was included among the EU youth goals. And then the Brussels office also can be present in this direct dialogue with European institutions. These on the more technical issues like funding, etc., etc. So as we said, an example of successful action, we were consulted directly on the EU strategy, and we were able to push priorities such as the environment and mental health. We participated to the campaign to multiply by 10 the Erasmus Plus funding, which we use a lot as European youth NGOs, and as YMCAs do use it at a national level. We managed to triple that, and it's actually, believe it or not, a really good result. Also, we have a program called the European Solidarity Corps. You might have heard it. It allows people to volunteer abroad. And in one of its first drafts, the European Solidarity Corps only covered a number of countries, namely the EU member countries, which would have been a great discrimination towards those countries that were not members of the EU. And YMCA Europe and other members of the European Youth Forum campaigned strongly to keep the European Solidarity Corps much larger in its participation and to include the countries that were not members of the EU. So how do we work with the European Youth Forum? How do we send our representation? We have a youth policy group. At this time, it counts around 9 members from 7 countries. We have produced 4 policy papers. What does that mean? Of course, before telling the European Youth Forum what are our priorities and telling the EU what are our priorities, we need to make up our minds. And on the basis of the YMCA Europe strategy from 2016 to 2020, we created 4 policy papers on for the 4 main themes: migration, peace and justice, and employment and empowerment. And this is a youth-led advocacy. These policy papers were not written by me, the advocacy officer. They were drafted by our members of the youth policy group. I simply pieced it together and made it into less pages. And then these documents were sent to our executive committee for approval. You understand this is called youth-led because, of course, if these topics, these things were not written by our 9 young people into those papers, then those topics are not in those papers. So the members of the European of the youth policy group of YMCA Europe make our advocacy in cooperation with the executive committee. So the youth policy group members are also are representatives. So that means anytime the European Youth Forum, for example, has comments, GAs, it has conferences, meetings, expert group. It is the members of our youth policy group who participate and speak with the voice of YMCA Europe. And so through that, the youth policy group not only writes our policy papers, but also amends and changes and drafts policy papers of the European Youth Forum and of other organizations like the Advisory Council on Youth of the Council of Europe. And as we said, we have produced those 4 policy papers. You can look up at least 2 of them on our website. The structure of these policy papers is manifesto and recommendation. So describes the problems and then recommends solution. We will talk about this in the parts of our work related to policy papers. I have a trick question for you at the end of all this. Do you remember the first part of our lesson? Can you tell the difference between the European Council, the Council of the EU, and the Council of Europe? Give yourself 1 minute to think about this one. If you have questions, and I bet you do have a lot, it's perfectly normal. I condensated in 15 to 20 minutes some knowledge that people acquire in months, if not years. So this is just meant to be a little introduction. And we will give you also the websites of all the institutions we mentioned so that you can look them up, both on the side of the European Union, the Council of Europe, and also the European Youth Forum. I hope this made things a bit clearer and maybe inspired you a little bit to participate and to be a part of the decision-making process, because you're really needed for that. So thank you very much, and I hope to see you soon.